She knows everyone's darkest secrets. But what happens when someone starts digging into hers will leave you speechless. In a quiet town nestled between rolling hills and whispering woods, there lived a girl who never spoke much, but always listened. Her name was Amira, and if you walked by her on the street, you'd hardly give her a second glance. She was soft-spoken, always polite, and never one to draw attention. But there was something about her. Something that made people feel oddly compelled to tell her things they hadn't told anyone else. Secrets, dark ones, shameful ones, petty gossip and life-altering confessions. People couldn't help themselves around Amira. It was as if she drew the truth out of them with invisible strings. The woman at the bakery told her about the affair she had 10 years ago and the child her husband never knew about. The school principal confessed to covering up an incident involving a wealthy student. A teenage boy told her about stealing money from his sick grandmother. Amira didn't ask. They just told her. And she always listened with those calm, steady eyes. Never judging. Never reacting. Never sharing. But here's the thing about Amira. While she knew everyone's secrets, no one knew hers. Amira lived in an old brick house with ivy creeping up its walls. She lived alone. No parents, no siblings, no relatives who visited. Her neighbors assumed she was in her early 20s, though no one knew for sure. She worked at the town's small library, a quiet job that suited her perfectly. She was always there, sorting books, dusting shelves, helping visitors, listening. It wasn't unusual for people to stop by the library and, for no apparent reason, unload their thoughts. One rainy Thursday afternoon, a woman named Farah entered the library, soaked to the bone and trembling. Amira didn't ask why. She simply handed her a towel, made her tea, and waited. Farah sat down in the corner, staring into her cup. Then quietly, "I killed someone." Amira's eyes didn't blink. Her breath didn't catch. She simply nodded slightly. Farah went on. "I didn't mean to. It was an accident. But I left him there. Panic. I never told anyone. It was years ago, and they ruled it an overdose. But I still see him in my dreams." Amira simply said, "Does it hurt more to keep it buried?" Farah burst into tears. Amira offered her silence as comfort. Not advice. Not judgment. Just that calm, steady presence. What no one knew was that Amira's ability to draw out secrets wasn't just about being a good listener. It was something more. Something unexplainable. Ever since she was a child, Amira could hear it. The weight in people's voices, the flicker of guilt behind their smiles, the tremor in their laugh when they were hiding something. It wasn't reading minds, not exactly. It was like tuning into a specific frequency that only she could hear. Some called it intuition. Amira knew better. It was a gift. And a curse. She didn't choose this. But over time she had learned to live with it. People were drawn to her energy. They came to her like moths to a lantern, exposing their shadows. But not one soul in the town knew a thing about her past. Not one soul even tried. There was one person who found this unsettling. Detective Horace. A man of logic, rules, and evidence. Horace had been transferred to the town from the city 5 months ago, seeking quiet after a messy personal loss. He was tall, sharp-eyed, and always watching. And the first time he met Amira, something about her unsettled him. He had come into the library looking for case files on an old, unresolved death. She helped him find them wordlessly. He noticed her calm demeanor, her odd silence, the way she looked at him. Not as if she was trying to figure him out, but as if she already knew. That look stayed with him. Then came the incident. A local politician's daughter went missing. The whole town erupted into panic. Posters went up, search parties organized, rumors flew. Horace was at the center of the investigation. The girl, Zoya, was last seen at the school library. Her phone was found in the river. No signs of struggle. No ransom note. Just gone. Then, out of nowhere, Amira came to the station. She asked to speak with Horace privately. She sat down across from him, folded her hands and said, "You're looking in the wrong direction. What makes you say that?" Horace asked, leaning forward. Amira stared at him. Because she's not missing. She ran. Horace narrowed his eyes. What do you know? Amira said nothing for a long moment. Then quietly, her father, he wasn't the man he claimed to be. And she left. That night, Horace stayed up, replaying every moment of their interaction. The next morning, the girl's friend came forward, sobbing, admitting that Zoya had been planning to escape an abusive household for months. With help, she'd left town and was safe. Just like Amira said. That's when Horace got serious. Who was this woman? How did she know? He began digging. He searched old records but found nothing. No school history, no hospital visits, no family. The town system only had her library employment record from 4 years ago. Nothing before that. It was as if she simply appeared one day. The deeper he dug, the stranger it got. He asked around. Everyone liked Amira, but no one knew where she lived exactly. They just assumed. No one had been inside her home. No one had seen her outside work hours. No photos. No old friends. No childhood stories. One evening, Horace went to the old brick house himself. He knocked. No answer. He walked around the back. Curtains drawn, windows shut tight. He had a strange feeling. Like he was being watched. The next morning, a small envelope was slipped under his door. Inside a note. Some doors should remain closed, detective. Not all truths bring peace. No name. But he knew. Amira was changing. Least to Horace. He began noticing the subtle shifts in her gaze. The calm that no longer seemed just peaceful, but guarded. Controlled. Calculated. And then, he got a call. A murder. The town's doctor. Poisoned in his home. No sign of forced entry. No valuables missing. Just a bottle of wine on the table, 2 glasses, one empty, the other full. Horace scanned the room. Something about it felt familiar. There was a book lying open on the armchair. Library book. Stamped with yesterday's date. He turned to the back. Checked the card. And there it was. Borrowed by Amira. The library was unusually quiet. Even for a place built for silence, the atmosphere felt heavier now, as if the very walls were holding their breath. Amira sat behind the front desk, sorting through a stack of returned books. She could feel it in the air. Something had shifted. Whispers had started swirling through the town. Not the usual confessions people carelessly tossed into her lap, but something deeper, more suspicious. Someone had died. Someone important. And Amira had been at the center of it. Detective Horace hadn't slept in over 24 hours. The death of Dr. Samir, the town's only physician, wasn't just tragic. It was suspicious. Horace had found the wine glasses. One full. One empty. And that library book, borrowed under Amira's name, was too precise to be a coincidence. He went back to the station and pulled every file he had. Every time Amira had shown up during an investigation. Every time she just happened to know something. And every time the pattern had been the same. She would appear, drop one precise thread of truth, and vanish before the fallout began. He picked up the phone and called headquarters. "I need surveillance on Amira," he said. "I don't care if you need a drone or a dog. She's not who she claims to be." Meanwhile, Amira stood in her tiny kitchen, the scent of old jasmine tea floating through the air. She opened a drawer beneath the sink and removed a weathered black notebook. Inside were names. Pages of them. Crossed out, circled, underlined. Next to each. Their secrets. Most were mundane. Affairs. Ways. But a few were darker. And one of them was Dr. Samir. She flipped to his page. Samir H. Replaced real cancer screenings with false reports for cash. 6 dead. No accountability. Avoids eye contact. Cold-hearted. She had given him a chance. 2 years ago she approached him. Carefully, gently, told him she knew. He denied it. Then threatened her. She gave him another chance. He smiled in her face and asked if she wanted hush money. Amira never asked again. And she never warned him again. He just waited. Until one night, over a glass of wine, he bragged to a friend, loudly, proudly, about how patients are like sheep. That was the moment Amira knew. Some secrets shouldn't be protected. But Amira didn't kill him. At least, not directly. What she did was worse. She planted guilt. In just the right amount. Just the right time. She whispered into his life like a ghost, reminding him of what he had done. A newspaper article on his desk about a child who died from cancer. A phone call with no one speaking on the other end. A library book slipped into his mailbox titled, The Weight of a Lie. She didn't need poison. The man drank himself to death. His liver was already weak. The wine just did the rest. That evening, Horace showed up at the library. Amira was waiting. "I need to ask you some questions," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "I assumed you would," Amira replied softly. "Dr. Samir was poisoned. There were 2 glasses. One book. Borrowed by you." Amira looked directly into his eyes. Controlled. "Borrowed under my name. That doesn't mean by me." Horace blinked. "And how would someone borrow under your name? Have you seen the library's system, detective? We still use paper cards. Someone could write anything. Anyone could have signed that book out. That's not proof." Horace clenched his jaw. "You seem to know a lot for someone not involved." "I know a lot," she said, "because people give me their truth when no one else wants it." There it was again. That look. Like she was dissecting his very soul. Later that night, Horace opened a brown envelope that had arrived anonymously at the station. Inside were photocopied pages from an old psychiatric file. Patient name: Amira A. Date of admission: March 16, 2011. Facility: Al-Noor Institute for Sensitive Disorders. Confidential location. Diagnosis: Hypersensitive Empathic Response Syndrome, HERS. Symptoms: involuntary reception of emotional and psychological states of others, leading to internalized guilt, anxiety, insomnia. Patient describes it as hearing the weight of secrets. Horace sat back in his chair, stunned. He read on. Subject shows signs of extraordinary perceptive skills. Claims she can sense lies like a smell. Isolated herself due to emotional overload. Withdrawn but highly intelligent. Recommended for long-term supervision. Attached was a photo. A teenage girl. Eyes full of silent storms. It was her. Amira. The next morning, Horace returned to the library. But Amira was gone. So was every trace of her. No library card. No record. The house she lived in. Stripped clean. Only the scent of old jasmine tea remained in the air. Weeks passed. People moved on. Another librarian was hired. Another politician stepped in to handle the investigation. And slowly, the name Amira faded from everyday conversations. But every once in a while, someone in town would hear a knock at their door. Or find a book on their desk. Or a note that read simply, "I know." Years later, Horace retired and moved to the outskirts of a different city. One morning a letter arrived. No address. No name. Just one line written in that same delicate script. "The truth never dies, detective. It just waits for the brave to find it." Inside the envelope, black notebook, pages filled with secrets, not just from the town, but from cities, villages, countries beyond. He flipped to the last page. There was a name. Horace M. Keeps pretending he doesn't believe in her. Still carries her picture. Secretly hopes she's watching. Underneath it, some people listen to secrets. Others live with them. And beneath that, "I never needed to speak to be heard."